Hi, and welcome to the video that reviews the Form BRBC Buyer Representation and Broker Compensation Agreement. This form can be found on page 53 of the Compliance Review Training Contracts that is uploaded into the app. In this form, we're going to review buyer's compensation. And this is super important that when we're reviewing the buyer's side of a transaction, when one of our agents is the buyer's representation, we always have to have a BRBC present. A BRBC needs to be dated on the same day or prior to an RPA being completed. So you always want to notate the date prepared and the date prepared of the RPA. Note that whatever is on the BRBC as a compensation for a buyer's agent cannot be lower than what is on an RPA unless a new BRBC is executed prior to the RPA to increase the compensation. Buyer's compensation can only go down and not up on an RPA unless there's a new one prior to the RPA. So here you're going to just want to make sure that the name of the buyer, the name of the broker is here. This is a super important section. It's not as important on this new form that it was on the old form. The old form said that it was no longer than 3 months and that it was void if it was longer than 3 months. However, the new version of this form says that it cannot be longer than 90 days and that if it is longer than 90 days, that it reverts back to 90 days. So just notate that 3 months and 90 days is not the same thing when you have months that have 31 days in them. So you can't just assume that it is June 1st to September 1st because August and July have 31 days in it. So that is longer than 90 days. So you always want to make sure that you're notating this, but it doesn't become void. The problem that we're going to run into is if an agent goes and looks at their end date and the end date is longer than the 90 days and they are beyond the 90 days and they write an RPA based on what's input in here, there could be just missed communication or misunderstandings if the end date is incorrect, and make it to where the buyer's agent is actually not entitled to a compensation. It is that important. Type of representation here, you do want to see if the exclusive box is marked. If the exclusive box is marked, there is a section on the last page that I'll show you that must be initialed if this box is marked. So then let's just go to that page here. So we're going to go here. In here, this is your exclusive representation. If the box on page 1 is marked, make sure this section is initialed. So let's go back to page 1. Property. If it is a single family residence, we're looking for no boxes to be checked in this area. Location, at least one of these lines should be filled out. Additional description, is there anything on this form that we need to make note of? Is this box marked? If the box is marked, then this form needs to become a requirement. And so you would toggle back to the checklist. If you do not see it as a requirement in the buyer's documentation section, add an item, add it in there, make it a requirement, and then in the comments section, you're going to say referred to in BRBC. Is anything noted in this section here? So here is the section that we're wanting to pause and take note of. Amount of compensation. Make note of the compensation. Here, this is where I'm going to take a note on my page. Say it says 3%. So I'm going to, when I accept or reject this form, not before, I'm going to notate 3.0 is what's on this form so that when I'm completing a commission disbursement form. I'm not having to open all the forms to find out what percentages are on there. You've notated it. But just keep in mind that if you are making comments in that section prior to accepting or rejecting the form, the comment that you made is going to disappear. It's okay if you do that. Just make a note after accepting or rejecting the form so that it is visible just by glancing. If there's an additional amount here, so say it's 3% plus $100, in the comment section you're going to put 3.0 plus 100. So whatever is in here, you're going to put in the comment section. Continuation period, typically there is an amount of days added here. If the broker is paying a referral fee, a RAD form is required. So if this box is marked, you would go back to the buyer documentation section of the checklist and make required the RAD form. The RAD form is probably down in the sales documentation or sales disclosure section. It should be in all checklists at this point, unless it's an older checklist that you're looking at. Keep in mind that the checklists that are there are chosen, not that always the correct checklist is chosen. And not always the most current version is there, because the version of the checklist that is there is the version that was the checklist on the date that this transaction was created, and it might be an older version of the checklist. So at the bottom here, you're looking for any additional terms that may change or add requirements. Buyer and broker initials this notate that this is a 5-page form. We are looking for all pages to be present. This box should be an automatic box, and it should already be a required form. So we're going to the bottom, nothing else needed except for verifying initials. Page 2 is here. Nothing else needed on page 3. Verify initials, page 3 is here. Same thing on page 4, is our initials present with page 4 there. If the box on page 1 was marked, then this section needs to be initialed. And here we want to note, is the buyer an individual or an entity? If it is a trust or a corporation or a power of attorney or a LLC or anything other than an individual, this box should have been marked and these lines should be completed. Just because the box is marked, if these lines are not completed, it is not a fully completed section. So if the box is marked and these lines are completed, this section says, note, if this paragraph is completed, a representative capacity signature disclosure or RCSD is not required. However, if the buyer is not an individual and this section is not marked and completed, toggle back to the checklist, make the RCSD form a requirement by clicking the must upload document, and then notate in the comments that buyer is a trust form is required, or buyer is a LLC form is required. Indicate whatever the reason why you're making this form a requirement. Then this section, we want to make sure that our agent has this completed. Is there any check marks on these boxes? If there are, then these forms become a requirement. Toggle back to the checklist and make sure those are a must upload, and notate in the comments section that the box for this form is checked, so form is now required. And we do see that page 5 of the BRBC is present. And that is how you're going to review a BRBC. Let us know if you have any questions.